Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today, a little dark. Let's do it. Anyone ever find a dead body unintentionally? What's the story? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Leaving my house for a quick errand, briefly noticed an elderly lady parked on side of the road. When I returned, her car was still in the same location, and as I looked closer, she appeared unconscious, so I stopped, but her doors were locked, so I dialed 911. It was determined she had passed away. This occurred when living on Lake Lanier in North Georgia. I was at a family reunion forever ago. On my 13th birthday, Papa and I wake up early to go fishing on the big lake right next to the campsite. We get in my uncle's bass boat and start making our way out to find a spot. Eventually, come across a jet ski, with the front end and handlebars all effed up, floating amongst some rocks. I will never forget it. We both immediately looked at each other, and we knew what we were going to find. We didn't say a word, just took the boat over the rocks, and sure enough, there's a guy face down in the water in the rocks, obviously dead. We called the cops and waited, so we could find him easier. They showed up maybe 20 minutes later and pulled him out. The whole front of his head was just effed. Apparently he was drunk and riding his jet ski fast as hell the night before and smashed into the rocks head on. Poor dude, think he was in his 40s if I remember right. We fished all morning and didn't say an effing thing. Didn't catch shit either. Yes, when I was 11 I woke up and was looking for my mom. Couldn't find her anywhere. Walked to her side of the bed and she was dead on the floor. That was in 92. She was 27. I'm 43 now. My hardest birthday was 28. I felt so young still, and my life was just picking up and just imagining all the stuff she missed. My youngest sister would babysit for the woman at the end of our block. She was a divorced woman with 2 kids. The ex-husband hadn't heard from her for a few days and came by her house to no answer. Came to my house to see if maybe the kids were there with my sister, and if she had an answer why he hadn't heard from his ex-wife. Sister wasn't home, but he and I went to the house, knocked a few times, and then he just went to open the front door. It was unlocked, and her body was in the living room. She was dead, and her children were kidnapped by her then boyfriend. The ex-husband was rightfully shocked and terrified, immediately called the police and reported as much info as he knew. My little sister had to answer some questions about the boyfriend, help give a description and vehicle type, just basic stuff. I think they caught the boyfriend in San Antonio, if I remember. Couldn't find the article about it online. Anyone from this area heard about this story? If there's an update, did they find the kids? So, I don't know. If anyone knows, love to know. Playing in the woods hide and seek. I was running after my cousin and tripped and ate shit over what I thought was a rock. Turned over to get my shoe unstuck and saw it was something white, and I pulled my shoe out. I got up and saw it was actually a pelvis. I didn't know what the bone was named at the time, but I knew what a bone was. And I screamed, and my older cousins came running out from their spots to see me crying and trying to get away from the effing skeleton sitting in the dirt, and we went and told my parents. We were pretty deep in the woods, so one of us stayed nearby it, and another one of us waited about 50 feet away, but to where we could still see each other, and basically made a trail of human breadcrumbs to make sure we got back to the body to show the cops. Popular forest in my region. Me and a few friends cut through it walking home after school. One of them screamed, followed by another scream, followed by my frozen shock. Poor dude hung himself. The flies and the noises they made still itch my brain. There's a creek in my city. Suitcases were thrown back there. Someone opened one. It was arms. They had been sawn off. There were more suitcases and more body parts. A whole person had been dismembered with a meat saw and stuffed in suitcases and then thrown back there. Someone in the apartments nearby overdosed on heroin. Her boyfriend panicked when she overdosed. He used to be a butcher, so he chopped her up and disposed of her. He got caught because the store near the apartment had excellent cameras, and the owner reported a strange purchase right before the news dropped of the body being found. Old boy bought 8 gallons of bleach, and that's ultimately how he got caught. This was in the neighborhood of 25 years ago. Went for a day hike a couple of hours away from my apartment. I was on a rarely used unofficial trail that connects two trail systems and saw a patch of color that didn't look right in the undergrowth a few yards away. I walked over to check it out and quickly realized I was looking at a sweater. Got a few steps closer and turned right the F around when I saw a skeletal-looking hand sticking out of it. I was involved in a lot of not particularly legal shit back then, so I made an anonymous call to the state police from a rest stop payphone on my way home. A friend of mine had family ties to law enforcement in the area, so I asked him if he could find anything out for me months later. Turned out to be a woman who was murdered by her husband shortly after they moved to the area. My brother went for a walk in the local park to clear his head, found a guy hanging from a tree. He said it was obvious the guy was quite dead and beyond help when he called the emergency services. This was in a UK suburb near a school, not exactly an out-of-the-way location. Worked at a movie theater. It was a weekday morning, so usually pretty slow for us. Went in to clean a showing of The Hateful Eight. There were only two people in the theater, one in the very back and one towards the front. Walk in to clean the theater, see the guy up front, figure he was sleeping, happens sometimes. Say a couple things to see if he'll wake up. He does not. Get spooked and call my manager. Manager shook him a couple of times, realized something was wrong, called the police. Dude was dead. I drove past an elderly lady sat on her walker at the side of the road. Half an hour later, driving back again, she was still there in the middle of winter. Pulled over and went to check on her, just as she took her last breath. Someone else stopped and we did CPR until paramedics arrived, so I guess technically she wasn't a dead body until they pronounced her in the back of the ambulance. Walked out back one morning to let my dogs out. It was early, so it was pretty cold out. I look over and I see my neighbor sitting in a lawn chair in his yard. I get closer, thinking he might have fallen asleep or something the night before, and it was just too cold to be chilling there. As I got close, I see he isn't moving, and then I see a puddle of blood next to him. Then I see the shotgun. He shot himself in the chest. He was an older guy, former cop, who lost his wife like a year prior. He may have gotten some bad medical news himself shortly before he did it, too. It was surreal, though. This just happened 3 days ago. Me and my friends were on a vacation in Germany. We went to a really big castle on a hill surrounded by a wall. Behind the wall, everything was 50 meters lower. We were walking around the castle when a friend of mine stopped and asked me if I could come take a look because he saw something odd. We looked down and we saw the body of a woman. At first I thought she was just unwell or sleeping, maybe, but looking better, you could see her hips were placed weird, and her neck as well. After a while it was clear the person had passed away. Since it was 50 meters below us, we couldn't reach her. Some people called the police and then we had to go. The day after, we checked the news and saw an article about a dead woman that was found near the castle. They are investigating if it was a suicide or something else. We don't really have a clue what happened, if she fell from the wall or that she was walking below and something fell on her. To be honest, the view of seeing someone dead is really weird. Some of my friends were really disturbed by it, which I understand. The rest of the day was not so much fun. Yeah, I could imagine how finding a dead body while going through a German castle would be a bit of a bummer. So, no fault there, if you just go out and have a few drinks. Sorry that happened. I drove my daughter up a side road on the outskirts of town to take her to her part-time job. Weather was sunny and clear. Dropped her off, and not 2 minutes later, going back home, all traffic was now stopped. There were only 3 cars stopped in front of me, and I could clearly see a handsome blonde boy, early 20s, lying across the road next to his motorcycle lying on the ground. He was just eerily still, and you could tell he wasn't waking up. I didn't see a helmet. News later said he was hit by a truck. He must have been just seconds behind us when we were on the way to my daughter's work. He was pronounced dead at the scene. I don't know him, but I think about him sometimes. Such a shame to die so young. There's a roadside shrine to him now that we see every time we drive to my daughter's work. Sad. I was with my then girlfriend, later wife, who shared a penthouse in Boston with her brother. We went out into the deck one Sunday morning and saw a sweater draped over the railing. 23 floors below was a guy who jumped. He hit the ground so hard that his shoes exploded from the force. Police came and interviewed us, and we went on with our day. Very sad. I was driving my scooter home through an Amsterdam neighborhood. I heard a bang and saw a guy dressed in leathers and a helmet run across the street and get on his motorbike, speeding off. When I looked where he ran from, there was a body on the street, face down, in a puddle of blood. Another one. I was glider flying on a hot summer day at a busy but small airfield. Thunderclouds appeared, so time to pack up. I was assisting at the winch truck, which was there to launch the gliders. Winch operator got nervous having a few hundred meters of steel cable on a draw chute in the air, lightning rod, and cut it with the hydraulic knife. So far, so good. We continued wrapping up, and I decided to pick up the steel cable from the middle of the airfield, grabbed a car, radioed the tower my intentions, and proceeded. I found the cable pretty much in the middle of the very flat field. It had already started to rain. I got out of the car, standing on the wet grass, holding the very long steel cable, trying to hook it to the car. I managed to do so, but then there was a loud bang at the edge of the field near the static line and hangars. At first I thought it was a plane engine malfunction or something like that. I saw people rushing toward a smoking mass. I still thought it was an engine. I drove towards it, thinking I could help. While I got closer, I noticed it smelled weird. Hair at the back of my neck raised, but still not realizing I got closer. I saw a single jump boot on the ground ripped to shreds. I looked over at the other people there and realized they were performing CPR on the smoking mass. A parajumper got hit by lightning. Instant crispy death. Then I realized where I was the moment it happened, and how lightning apparently not always chooses the shortest distance to the ground. I chose to stay inside for quite a while during subsequent thunderstorms. I will refrain from sharing the war stories from former Yugoslavia. I passed an older lady while walking my dog. She was acting a bit strange, but nothing alarming when I saw her. Shortly thereafter, she approached some neighborhood kids, maybe 14 to 15 age range, trying to give them her car keys, saying to take it, she doesn't need it anymore. As I was walking back into the house, I heard a pop and figured one of the skater kids had some firecrackers. Late June, so again, no real concern. The cops swarmed the block. She had a mental health crisis and shot herself in the heart with a .22 just feet from the poor kids. In 2017, I used to work as a photographer for one of the biggest shoe stores in Gdansk, Poland. Like one of those with limited, mostly overpriced, rare kicks mixed with normal New Balances and Nikes. I was responsible for doing pack shots, pictures of the product on white background you see on every website, and more lifestyle type of content for social media. The latter was really fun because I got to take 5 or 6 pairs and go somewhere to shoot with my friend who would just put them on for pictures. Guy was very athletic, so if I envisioned him standing on his hands jumping very high or run super fast for photo, there was no problem with any of that. The golden rule was that location had to match the shoe in some way. For example, soccer cleats somewhere on the field, basketball shoes on the court, running shoes on track, etc. It was my role to get creative with it. One day, I had to do a pair of Timberlands, some Puma running shoes, and Vans in collaboration with Nintendo. I was really looking forward to those Vans because I managed to book local arcade spot before it opened, so creatively, it was dope. We shot quick pictures of running shoes on the local track and decided to take the Tims to a nearby forest, where we knew there were some old post-war bunkers. It was winter, so gray concrete, some snow and trees seemed like a perfect spot for mustard-colored shoes to pop up. And it was in theme, since in Poland, 6-inch Tims are more of a winter shoe than work boots. So, My friend put the shoes on, went to a spot near the entrance to the bunker where I told him to stand, and froze. He turned around and said, "Come here, and tell me that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing." So, there I went thinking he found some money or phone or something. Nope. There was a body like 2 to 3 steps inside the hallway, completely covered with some rugs and cardboard, except the effing creepiest, now engraved in my memory, paper white face, with open eyes and open mouth looking right at us. He was lying on his side, and his head was turned up toward us, which made it even creepier. We just stood there for like 20 seconds, not moving, not breathing, in complete silence, like we were waiting for him to say something, or, I don't know, stand up. It was clear that guy was dead, but we yelled, "Hey!" a few times because we couldn't believe what is happening. The fact that this guy was near the entrance and there was this whole huge dark effing hallway with bunker rooms behind it started to create the weird scenarios in our head straight from zombies or Friday the 13th movies. We went back to the car and called the police. Patrol car came in like 2 minutes. We pointed the cops where to go since we really didn't want to go there again. Turned out it was a homeless guy who got very drunk and went to sleep right after downing a whole bottle of vodka. Froze to death. Cops said they knew him. He was about 60 in and out of prison. It took 2 of them like 2 hours to take our statements. I remember one of them not believing that taking pictures of shoes can actually be a profession, so I had to show him what pictures we'd taken already that day. Next day, there was like a brief mention in one of the local newspapers saying that police are looking for any relatives of a guy. Oh, and we didn't go to the arcade to take those pictures, went to a bar and got drunk instead. On a funny, shorter note, in 2022 my car was stolen and I had to go to a police station to report it. When cop was putting my info into the system, he looked at me from behind his computer and said, "Holy shit, you've just randomly found that body?" Had to tell the story again. Still didn't find my car. Had a paper route when I was a kid. Part of my round was delivering to a retirement block. On this day, I stepped out of the lift, and as I approached the door to the corridor, I saw a trail of blood running underneath it. As I opened the door, an old lady was laid head first down on the floor with blood pouring from her head, her front door open. Tried to help her, but she was clearly gone. I chucked the paper over her body and into her flat and ran down to the warden's flat. 40 plus years later, remember it as clear as day. Got offered counseling and a trip to McDonald's from the police. I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, but unironically, if you got a t-shirt that said, "I found a dead body and all I got was counseling and free McDonald's." A long time ago, I had a job as a deckhand for a tugboat operation on the Mississippi. Basically, the job entailed guiding a tugboat to break down all of the barges that they sandwiched together on the way down the river and putting them where the ocean-going tugs can get them on the next stage of their delivery. Anyway, it was late at night, and we were breaking barges apart when we were assaulted with a nasty smell. I got the tugboat captain to move his searchlight down, and sure enough, there was a dead body that had been sandwiched in between 2 barges. It was in pretty bad shape, so I grabbed a gaff pole and hooked it while we waited on the Coast Guard to arrive. Physically loading the body was an ordeal that I won't go into, but you can imagine what a condition a body would be in after it had been submerged for a couple of weeks. Much later, we found out it was a bridge suicide from St. Louis. The body must have drifted down and got caught in a barge tow and worked its way eventually down to New Orleans.